I was able to sit in it, quite frankly. They let me see it, so I apologise to you, and you won't see it until tomorrow, but you're going to like it. I'd sure like to drive it. I wonder whether or not I can lose the Secret Service and go out on the track with it. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. Look, the future of the auto industry is electric. There's no turning back. That is the verdict of President Joseph R. Biden on the upcoming F-150 Lightning pickup truck, a vehicle that Ford is set to unveil tomorrow evening, US time. Speaking at a special event at Ford's Rouge Electric Vehicle Center in Detroit, Michigan, the president spoke passionately about his love of the auto industry, the need to transition away from fossil fuels, and the urgency with which the US must take steps to lead the world in electric vehicles and clean technology. And today, we're going to revisit that speech. We're going to try and parse what he said and ask what's next, as well as see what President Biden really thought after Ford and the Secret Service let him have his wish. But before we get there, it's important to examine why Ford and why now. Aside from the obvious, the F-150 Lightning is getting revealed tomorrow, Ford, like General Motors and Chrysler, has worked alongside worker unions for more than 80 years. And at the heart of President Biden's infrastructure plan is strong unionization, collective bargaining, and employee representation, something the president views as essential to providing workers with a decent living, job security, and good, safe working conditions. That belief, by the way, is a stark contrast to the beliefs of his predecessor, who worked to dilute the power of worker unions during his time in office. And there is a lot of work ahead for the Biden administration, both in terms of legislation and collaboration, before some of those previous administration's policies are rolled back. Speaking after several others on stage, including Bill Ford Jr., executive chairman of Ford, and great-grandson of Ford's founder, Henry Ford, Rory Gamble, president of the United Auto Workers Union, and UAW member from the Ford truck plant by the name of Angela Powell, President Biden acknowledged some of the biggest challenges facing the auto industry in the US, the biggest challenges facing the US industrial sector, and the societal challenges of anthropogenic climate change. He started his speech with a very simple statement. My name is Joe Biden, and I'm a car guy. Noting he got through school because his dad ran a car agency, adding, quote, I'm standing here because about 180 years ago, when I first got elected to the Senate Gov, the UAW elected me. Following that statement, which got some cheers from the audience, the president made some shout-outs to local politicians and leaders, including well-wishes to Michigan Representative Tlaib's family in the West Bank, and then he got down to business. Thanking the audience for making America's best-selling vehicle, the Ford F-150, the president commented how important he felt it was that the future should be, quote, made in America, on a stage filled with a whole range of F-Series pickups from various years of manufacture, including a Ford F-150 Lightning hiding almost completely behind the dais. It was the only truck on stage with its headlights on. President Biden acknowledged what a huge generator of jobs the F-Series lineup of trucks is in the US for the economy and for Ford. Of the huge number of people that work at Ford in the US, he said 1/2 are supported by the F-Series family. America is at a crossroads, he said. The real question is whether we'll lead or fall behind in the race for the future, or whether we'll build these vehicles and the batteries that go in them here in the United States, or rely on other countries. Right now, the president said, China is leading the world in EVs, both in terms of electric vehicles and the battery packs that go in them. In a similar vein, he acknowledged the current global microprocessor shortage and the challenges that lay ahead for both the auto industry and other associated industries in ensuring that a shortage like this never ever happens again. Reiterating the need to produce not only electric vehicles and green technology in the US, but also the parts that those vehicles and technologies need, President Biden referred to Georgia, where Ford's battery supplier, SK Innovation, has a battery production facility. The company had been embroiled in a long, drawn-out battle against rival firm LG Energy over patent infringement, and a ruling earlier this year by the US International Trade Commission had banned SKI from making or selling batteries in the US that used patents that LG Energy says it stole. We took care of that, Biden said, suggesting that, as we had suspected when it happened, the White House had a very big part to play in negotiating a deal between the two rival companies that would ultimately allow both firms to continue to produce and sell lithium-ion batteries for the US auto industry. Tangential side note, LG Energy and SKI have been duking it out for what feels like eons, and both firms have accused the other of stealing trade secrets. I don't expect this particular spat to resurface, but I wouldn't put it past each firm to sue each other again in the future for some other battery-related patent issue. Anyway, back to the speech. The president criticised the previous administration for its efforts to roll back emission standards and called out Ford for opposing those rollbacks. He also called out his predecessor for letting federal tax credits expire, penalising auto workers, and announcing an infrastructure week, but then not actually getting anything concrete achieved. At the heart of Biden's speech was a promise to transition the US auto industry to electric vehicles and to commit the US economy to a zero-emission future. This includes a commitment to installing 50,000 charging stations across the country for EVs, as well as increasing jobs in both the automotive and associated clean energy industries. It means, he told us, innovation and investment in the US, something that he's been calling for Congress to pass in the form of the American Jobs Plan. President Biden stated that when he thinks of climate change, he thinks of jobs. There's definitely something to be said for that way of thinking and reframing the fight against climate change in terms of economic opportunity, and it could be an effective strategy in bringing businesses and politically conservative interests on board. But at the same time, to people who've been emotionally and practically invested in the issue of anthropogenic climate change for a long time, it can come across as perhaps callous to the very real harms involved in both changing environment and the enormous level of disruption that will make those jobs come into being. Interestingly, though, the president also likened the investment he's calling for to the investments in the Defense Department and NASA that were made in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Investments that, in his words, got the modern semiconductor industry on its feet decades ago. Quote, "We started it, your tax dollars," he said. Quote, "Our very own Department of Energy pioneered and transformed the battery industry when Barack and I were in office, and through the Recovery Act's grants and loans, battery prices dropped 80%. 80% because we were looking forwards. We need that same mindset today. We have to look forwards." One of the most interesting and, frankly, worrying parts of this speech, though, came at the end. Talk of commitment and progress isn't particularly meaningful without a legislative path forwards. In our video last week about President Biden's infrastructure plan, you can see it here, we actually raised concerns about its political viability. And at the time, a number of viewers criticised the fact that we didn't take into account the budget reconciliation process as a way that the infrastructure plan could actually be put into action. But while reconciliation wasn't explicitly mentioned in today's address, Biden was very clear that he's focusing on having a bipartisan consensus for his infrastructure and job plans. In the address, he noted that Republicans are expected to present their own infrastructure proposals in the very near future. In the political landscape of 10 or maybe 15 years ago, it wasn't actually difficult to imagine a strong bipartisan infrastructure plan passing in the American legislature, one that provides most of what President Biden is looking for to bring into action. But the American political landscape has been radically transformed over the past two presidential administrations, in case you hadn't noticed, and it's difficult to imagine inter-party cooperation yielding any meaningful compromise bill at this point. Denying Joe Biden a win may simply be too important to the GOP to want to collaborate, even if doing so would be at the nation's best interests. President Biden lays out an exciting vision of how America could once again be a global industry leader, while at the same time providing good jobs, strengthening the economy, and doing our part to help halt the progress of climate change. But we come away from this address in the exact same place we did when we read his administration's infrastructure plan, unconvinced he and his party have votes to do it without breaking legislative norms, or the willingness to use the partisan budget reconciliation process to actually get things done. On that note, let's finish the video with some good things that weren't stated on camera during the official speech, but rather reiterated during the president's tour of the facility, where he met various people responsible for the F-150 Lightning and let slip some facts and figures that may, or may not, still be under embargo. I can't possibly say. When discussing the battery pack of the F-150 Lightning, the largest battery pack that Ford has ever made for an electric vehicle, the president asked Chief Engineer Linda Zhang for the weight of the battery. She answered, £1,800, Mr. President, to which President Biden commented on the truck's centre of gravity. Look, I'm not sure if he was prepared ahead of the cameras rolling. It's frankly likely that he had an in-depth briefing, but it was at least good to see a president show real interest in engineering that makes electric vehicles handle so well, and have some knowledge about vehicle dynamics. But perhaps the best bit? Well, that was seeing the president enjoy some time behind the wheel. He took a camouflage F-150 Lightning out on a closed track and almost appeared giddy behind the wheel. Commenting on how quick it was, he let slip a sprint time, approximately 4 and a bit seconds according to him, but then he was quickly told by Ford officials that wasn't official yet. And then he told the amassed press he'd accelerate to 80 miles per hour and then brake, which he promptly did to joy from the press. Someone apparently commented in the C-SPAN coverage of it that they heard a holy expletive in reference to the acceleration, and frankly, with his big aviators on and a massive grin on his face, the president seemed extremely happy. After all, he's not allowed to drive on the public highway now he's president, and getting behind the wheel is frankly an extremely rare occurrence for any president, current or former. And when you're a big car guy, I can't imagine how tough that reality would be. Before I go, as some of you may have seen, we've created a brand new channel just for Transport Evolved shorts. We decided to do this because while many of you love our shorts, some of you don't. Our goal is always to provide content that is relevant and helpful to as many people as possible, so we've decided this may be the best way to do that. We're going to continue to post a landscape mega cut of our shorts for the week on this channel, the main Transport Evolved channel, but all of the individual vertical shorts will now be posted on our newest channel called TE Shorts. We'll link to it below for you to subscribe to, and if you haven't already, please turn on your notification bells for each and every channel that you watch so you don't miss out on any of our videos. And seriously, subscribing and hitting the bell really helps us a lot, especially on this new channel, which we can't do much with until we've reached 1,000 subscribers and lots of views. So go on, in the words of my favourite bald captain, make it so. As always, thanks to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month patrons. Thanks to our $50 a month patrons, Anonymous Freak, Orain Jean Fellows, Gordon C, Paul Conway, Laura Sanborn, Anthony Coates, Denny Hyde, Shawnee Wader and Tesla in the Gong. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters, John Lyons, Marcel Wards, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin, and Ian. If you would like to join the ranks of wonderful Patreon supporters, you'll find a link below to Patreon, as well as Bitcoin and Ko-fi if you prefer. You can chat with the team and TE fans over at Discord, and if you want to buy some TE swag, just point yourself at our Redbubble store, and keep your eyes peeled for our Pride specials. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving!